My name's Kaylee, and I chose to do multiple disabilities for my presentation. So what does it mean to be multiply disabled? So according to the IDEA, multiple disabilities means simultaneous impairment, so a student will have one or more disability. The combination of the two or more causes severe educational impacts that they cannot be accommodated within a special education program solely for one impairment only. And the term does not include deaf blindness. So a student could have an intellectual disability and blindness, or an intellectual disability and orthopedic impairment. So it just varies on what the child has. So counselor roles in special education, a lot of it is done through child study team, but school counselors both work directly and indirectly with students with disabilities. And they mainly work advocating for services for students with disabilities and equality for them. Some of the direct impacts that counselors will have with students with disabilities are that they will be another outlet of information in regards to resources for outside and inside the school for the coming years, whether it be middle school transferring to high school, or elementary to middle, or high school to graduation and to college. Counselors will hold both group and individual counseling sessions, and these counseling sessions can help with social emotional development for the student, and enhance problem solving and planning, and help them with decision making altogether. Counselors can also be another resource for breaking through barriers or complications or experiences that can be imposed on them regarding the stigma and ignorance surrounding disabilities. Some of the indirect interactions is counselors can help staff understand and the importance of making an equal environment for students with disabilities. They can find necessary outside resources for the family to help gear the student more towards success. And they can just help create a positive, welcoming, and warm environment that the students feel safe in, and that it's supportive of both students with and without disabilities. So it's not just secluded to one group. So defining features of multiple disabilities. Students with disabilities, it means that the student has more than one disability, and it affects the emotion, behaviorism, mobility, and or sensory things. Individuals with multiple disabilities can exhibit a wide array of characteristics depending on what disability they have. Some traits can be more present or limited speech or physical mobility, lack of communication, or difficulty communicating. Many need supports for major life activities, such as going to the bathroom or writing their name. So it really depends on the disability of that individual themselves. And in this case, we're talking about two or more. So the student could be classified under 3 different disabilities and need have various features depending on what those disabilities include. So varieties of medical complications can arise too from the different disabilities. That can include, but are not limited to, seizures, hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain, scoliosis, which is an abnormal bend in the spine, and sensory loss, along with other things as well. So student populations, according to the U.S. Department of Education, 13% of student populations are considered special education. Out of that, only 2% of that 13% makes up students having the classification of multiple disabilities. Some of the causes of multiple disabilities can be just chromosomal abnormalities, heredity, and genetics. Prenatal or postnatal infections can also cause multiple disabilities. Different genetic disorders and traumatic brain injuries can be contributing factors to students with disabilities. So supporting children with these multiple disabilities. how much support a child's going to need is really dependent on the factors of what disabilities that student has. So one student with multiple disabilities may need more support than another student with disabilities, depending on the medical and the intellectual effects this disability has on that certain student. A child with mild disabilities may only need supports every now and then, and for certain things, whether it be behavior, intellect, or different accommodations like being sat with for extra time on an assignment or an assessment. And children with more severe disabilities may need around-the-clock care, and like I said earlier, they may need help going to the bathroom, they may need help eating. It really depends on the student and the child and the disabilities in which we're talking about. Different educational supports is that a lot of schools have incorporated outside services and inside services. They've incorporated occupational therapy, physical therapies, and different speech therapies within their curriculum and within their buildings. So they have these resources at hand at all times. Schools have also invested in assistive technologies such as Braille, hearing aids, audio systems, sign language interpreters, depending on the student's disabilities. And they are trying to make the building more inclusive. To aid in mobility, the physical therapies and orthopedic supports, again, I know the school that I'm doing my internship and seminar, they are actually, they have a PT person on full-time and a speech therapist, but we have OT that comes in every, I think twice a week. To be more effective, the educational facilities have to incorporate a variety of sources to meet the needs of these individual students with disabilities, especially severe or multiple disabilities. Continued integration into activities and educational programs with non-disabled peers is another crucial component of creating a more inclusive environment. So we have students that have these multiple disabilities within our building that are in an MD class, not 24/7 because we're not in school 24/7, but have aids with them at all times, incorporated into the gym class, incorporated into the lunchroom with the students that are non-disabled. So it gives them a sense of responsibility, and being integrated with the non-disabled peers, it helps with an attitude change and makes them more confident and makes them feel included. Different accommodations can be made to accommodate the needs for a special diet, different medications or special equipment required for them, or if they need a special type of aid with them. This just creates an all-around, all-inclusive environment, and it can also benefit the non-disabled peers by teaching them how to work with disabled students, seeing that these disabled students are no different than them. They're still children. They still want to play. They still want to have fun. They still want to be included. So it creates a really inclusive environment and somewhere where all students are welcome, not just non-disabled students. We're making it warm and welcoming for all of them. And that's a really big part of the staff involvement, is making sure that those students are having that equal opportunity to adhere to give those students that experience. So the assessment measures to diagnose multiple disabilities, it is almost the same procedure as diagnosing one disability. The only difference is that you're doing it for two or more disabilities. So if the student's suspected of having multiple disabilities, the observation is made by a team member that's not their general education teacher. So it could be the social worker or the school psychologist or a special education teacher, depending. But it'll be made within the general education setting. So the student doesn't leave their classroom or anything. The person just observes them within the general education setting. If the child's younger than school age, then they find an age-appropriate environment to test the student in. The evaluator can request a developmental history and proceed with assessments of intellectual abilities. And then go further and test for speech and language impairments, and this always should be conducted by a specialist that's knowledgeable in the characteristics of what they're testing for. There will be a review of the cumulative records and any previous IEPs or accommodations that go with that, including 504s, INRS reports, behavior reports. Anyone that was really involved with the student can report on the student, or it can just be teacher collected work samples. If it's necessary, a medical statement can be provided from the doctor, and it can indicate any physical factors that can affect the student's academic performance. So some of the possible accommodations for students with multiple disabilities include extra time on assignments or test completions. Limit the number of items that the student's expected to learn at once, because it can become very overwhelming, especially if they have a developmental or intellectual disability. Modify the curriculum content based on the ability of the student. So you don't want to have someone who has a first grade reading level take a fifth grade reading level reading test or writing test. It's not going to match their ability level. So making accommodations to that and giving them assignments that match their level of ability will set them up for success. On math tests or math assignments where a calculator normally wouldn't be used, allow them to use a calculator. You can provide a predictable learning environment where they know, where they have the structure. The curriculum can be modified to incorporate everyday daily tasks such as properly washing your hands, or how to use a fork and spoon, or just tying shoelaces, depending on the level, and spending more time on that. You also want to modify the pace of the instruction. So if you're going too fast, you may want to slow it down so that the student can understand better, and this includes also reteaching. So it may take longer to get through a lesson because a student may need that extra time and the repetition to start to learn it. So we know as growing up, the more we do, the better we learn. So it just may take extra time, no matter how many times you have to reteach materials. You also can provide multi-sensory instruction. So more than one thing. If you're trying to teach addition, instead of just a paper and pen, use blocks, use figures, use drawing and erasing for subtraction. Different multi-sensory, so you're incorporating more than one sense rather just sight. They can feel the objects, they can throw the objects. We really don't want that, but it happens. Provide positive reinforcement. So a token reward, a reward chain, things for positive behavior. I know in the school that I do, every Wednesday they have a trip. The MD classes, the multiply disabled classes, they have a program that every Wednesday they go out and they go to a grocery store. Their parents give them a list of things to buy, give them money to buy it with, and the school takes them out into the grocery store and lets them have that sense of responsibility and learn how to give money and get change and get the proper items on the list. And just solely incorporating OT, PT, and speech therapy into their daily schedule. That could be another accommodation, because that could be a service that can be used in school and out of school. So they can have both in both environments and get that extra attention that they may need. But again, students with disabilities are still children. They still want to learn. They still want to have fun. They want to be included. Leaving them out and not creating an inclusive environment could be detrimental to their learning. Schools have become more accommodating for students with disabilities. I have been in school districts for 7 years now, and even just in those 7 years, I have seen drastic changes to the services that are provided within schools and the accommodations that are made. We are working to be able to accommodate any and all disabilities, and that includes students that have these multiple disabilities. I am very proud to say that I have worked with them for a while. I've been a guidance and child study team secretary for 7 years, and I have grown so much from not only my general education students, but also my special education students, and they really do hold a special place in my heart. And I hope to continue working with them and working in the school district as a counselor and being a part of creating this inclusive, welcoming environment for them. So thank you.